For many years, the humans and the alien race known as the Xyloth have been engaged in an escalating conflict. What had started as minor skirmishes and diplomatic tensions had slowly grown into an all-out war for control of the crucial trade routes and resource-rich planets in their shared region of space. The Xyloth, a highly advanced species with impressive technological prowess, had always looked down on the comparatively young and primitive humans. They saw the humans as little more than upstart children playing at being a spacefaring civilization, and were confident that their superior firepower and battle-hardened warriors would win the day. However, the humans had a secret weapon, one that they had been quietly developing for decades in the face of the alien threat. In the top-secret shipyards of the human interstellar navy, the most advanced and powerful warship ever conceived was nearing completion. Dubbed the Dreadnought, this colossal vessel represented the pinnacle of human engineering and design. Unlike the Xyloth's nimble but lightly armored fighter craft, the Dreadnought was an absolute behemoth, over a kilometer long, bristling with the most deadly energy weapons and shielding technology the human race could muster. Its crew knew that when the time came to face the Xyloth Armada, this ship would be the key to victory. Captain Evelyn Harrington, a brilliant young officer handpicked to command the Dreadnought, gazed out at the sleek, imposing form of her ship as the final pre-launch checks were carried out. After years of preparation, the time had come to prove the Dreadnought's worth. "This is it, men," she said, addressing the gathered bridge crew with a steely glint in her eye. "The Xyloth think they can crush us, but they have no idea what we're capable of. Once we take this beast into battle, they'll realize just how wrong they were to underestimate us." Her second-in-command, Commander Mikhail Volkov, nodded grimly. "The Xyloth won't know what hit them, Captain. The Dreadnought is going to turn the tide of this war." Harrington allowed herself a small smile. Dan straight at will. "All hands, prepare for launch. We're taking the fight to the Xyloth." As the massive engines of the Dreadnought roared to life, the crew braced themselves for the journey ahead. They knew that the fate of the entire human race rested on the success of this mission. The Xyloth had ridiculed the Dreadnought, dismissing it as an obsolete relic from a bygone era of human naval warfare. But the humans were about to prove them horribly, catastrophically wrong. The Dreadnought sliced through the void of space, its powerful sublight engines propelling it towards the latest Xyloth incursion into human-controlled territory. Harrington watched the tactical displays intently, her mind racing as she plotted her next move. The Xyloth fleet was larger and more heavily armed than expected, but she was confident that the Dreadnought's firepower would turn the tide. "Sensors detect multiple Xyloth capital ships, Captain," reported Lieutenant Samantha Park from the ops console. "They're deploying their fighter squadrons to intercept us." Harrington's eyes narrowed. "Launch our own fighters to engage, but keep the Dreadnought in reserve. Let's see what the Xyloth think of our new toys." The human fighter craft, sleek and agile compared to their alien counterparts, swept into the fray. Missiles and energy beams crisscrossed the void as the two sides clashed. For a time, it seemed that the Xyloth had the upper hand, their superior numbers and ruthless tactics overwhelming the human pilots. But then, the Dreadnought surged forward, its imposing bulk cutting through the battle. The alien ships, so confident in their ability to crush the humans, suddenly found themselves in the sights of the Dreadnought's fearsome array of plasma cannons and particle beam batteries. The first salvo from the human superweapon obliterated 3 Xyloth cruisers in the blink of an eye, their shields no match for the Dreadnought's devastating firepower. Panic began to spread through the alien fleet as they realized that their previous assumptions about the humans' capabilities had been woefully mistaken. Harrington watched the unfolding battle with a grim sense of satisfaction. "All batteries, target the enemy capital ships. Show them the true power of the Dreadnought." The mighty vessel unleashed a withering barrage, its guns ripping apart the Xyloth fleet with ease. Explosions rocked the alien ships as they desperately tried to evade the human onslaught. But it was no use. The Dreadnought was simply too powerful, its weapons too advanced, its crew too skilled. In the end, the once proud Psyloth armada lay in ruins, their shattered hulks drifting aimlessly through the void. Harrington allowed herself a brief smile, knowing that this was just the beginning. The humans had drawn first blood, and that Psyloth would soon learn that underestimating the Dreadnought was the gravest mistake they could have made. The Dreadnought was no ordinary warship. It represented the culmination of decades of research, development, and innovation by the brightest scientific minds in the human interstellar navy. At its core was a revolutionary power source, a miniaturized fusion reactor that provided virtually limitless energy to fuel the vessel's incredible array of weapons and defensive systems. The ship's armaments were equally impressive. In addition to its main plasma cannons and particle beam batteries, the Dreadnought bristled with point defense railguns, missile batteries, and even experimental directed energy weapons that could slice through even the toughest Psyloth shields. Its hull was layered with the most advanced ablative armor and energy shielding the humans could engineer, making it virtually impervious to enemy fire. But the true heart of the Dreadnought was its cutting-edge computing and sensor systems. Powered by a network of quantum-entangled processors, the ship's AI could track hundreds of targets simultaneously, predict their movements with uncanny accuracy, and coordinate a devastating barrage of firepower with unparalleled precision. The Psyloth, with their reliance on older, more conventional weapon systems, simply had no answer for the technological superiority of the Dreadnought. Their fighters, designed for hit-and-run attacks, and overwhelming smaller human ships with sheer numbers, were easily dispatched by the human vessel's point defense guns and long-range missile strikes. Despite the Dreadnought's awesome capabilities, however, the Psyloth still refused to take the threat it posed seriously. They had grown complacent in their victory over the humans, secure in the belief that their numerical and technological advantage would ensure their eventual triumph. The idea that a single human warship could pose a credible challenge to their mighty armada was simply inconceivable to them. This hubris would ultimately prove to be their undoing. As the Dreadnought continued its inexorable advance towards the Psyloth-occupied territories, the alien fleet made no move to intercept or engage the human vessel. Instead, their ships held position, their commanders no doubt confident that the Dreadnought would be easily overwhelmed once they deigned to respond. Captain Harrington watched this display of arrogance with a mixture of frustration and amusement. They really have no idea what they're up against, do they? She muttered to her first officer, Commander Volkov. Volkov nodded grimly. That Psyloth have underestimated us for too long, Captain. They think their superior numbers and firepower will be enough to crush us, but they have no idea what the Dreadnought is truly capable of. Harrington's jaw tightened. Well, it's time we showed them then. Helm, continue on our current course. Inform the fleet to hold position and await my orders. As the Dreadnought drew nearer to the Psyloth lines, the alien ships finally stirred into action. Wave after wave of fighter craft launched from their motherships, darting towards the human vessel in a desperate attempt to overwhelm it with sheer numbers. But the Dreadnought's sophisticated targeting systems were more than a match for the Psyloth pilots. Missile after missile streaked out, annihilating the alien fighters before they could even get within effective weapons range. The Psyloth capital ships, their long-range guns blazing, fared little better. Their firepower simply couldn't penetrate the Dreadnought's powerful energy shields. Harrington watched the unfolding battle with growing confidence. Helm, bring us within effective range of the enemy fleet. It's time we showed them what the Dreadnought can really do. As the massive human warship closed the distance, the Psyloth commanders realized, to their horror, that they had severely underestimated their opponent. The Dreadnought's weapons unleashed a devastating barrage, tearing through the alien ships with ease. Explosions rocked the Psyloth fleet, and their once proud armada began to crumble under the relentless onslaught. Harrington watched the unfolding chaos with a grim sense of satisfaction. All batteries, concentrate fire on their flagship. Let's show them the true power of the Dreadnought. The human vessel's main guns roared, sending a torrent of plasma and energy bolts towards the Psyloth command ship. The alien vessel's shields flickered and failed, and in a blinding flash of light, it was gone, reduced to nothing more than drifting debris. The rest of the Psylocke fleet, demoralized and leaderless, began to retreat, their once confident pilots now desperately fleeing the unstoppable might of the Dreadnought. Harrington allowed herself a small smile, knowing that this was just the beginning. "Signal the fleet to pursue and destroy the enemy ships," she ordered. "We can't let them escape to regroup. This war ends today." As the Dreadnought surged forward, its engines propelling it towards the retreating Psylocke armada, Harrington knew that the tide of the conflict had been irrevocably turned. The aliens had mocked the human warship, dismissing it as a relic of a bygone era. But now, they would learn the hard way that underestimating the Dreadnought was the gravest mistake they could have made. Captain Evelyn Harrington had been handpicked to command the Dreadnought, a position that carried with it an immense responsibility. As the officer tasked with leading humanity's most powerful warship into battle, she knew that the fate of the entire human race rested on her shoulders. Harrington was a brilliant strategist with an unwavering sense of determination. She had risen through the ranks of the interstellar navy through sheer skill and dedication, earning a reputation as a calm, collected, and decisive commander. Even in the face of the most daunting challenges, she maintained her composure and made the tough calls necessary to ensure victory. But Harrington was more than just a skilled tactician. She was also a charismatic and inspirational leader. Her crew, drawn from the best and brightest the human fleet had to offer, were fiercely loyal to her, awed by her unwavering confidence and the manner in which she navigated the most treacherous of situations. As the Dreadnought surged forward, Harrington stood tall on the bridge, her piercing gaze fixed on the tactical displays that showed the unfolding battle. She knew that the Psylocke would be shocked by the sheer power of the human vessel, but she also understood that their arrogance and overconfidence could easily lead them to make costly mistakes. "Status report," Harrington barked, her voice firm and unwavering. "Shields at 92% and holding, Captain," reported Lieutenant Samantha Park, the Dreadnought's chief of operations. "We've taken minimal damage from the enemy's barrage. Their weapons simply can't penetrate our defenses." Harrington nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "Excellent. Helm, maintain our current course and speed. Once we're within effective range, signal the fleet to stand by." Her first officer, Commander Mikhail Volkov, stepped forward, his own expression equally determined. "The Psylocke won't know what hit them, Captain. This ship was built to crush their armada." "Indeed," Harrington replied, her eyes narrowing. "But we can't afford to underestimate them, Mikhail. They may be arrogant, but they're also cunning. We need to be ready for anything." Volkov nodded in understanding. "Of course, Captain. I'll have the crew on high alert, ready to respond to any sudden maneuvers or attacks from the enemy." As the Dreadnought drew closer to the Psylocke fleet, Harrington could feel the tension on the bridge palpably rising. Her crew, seasoned veterans all, knew that this was the moment they had been training for, the moment when they would prove the true power of their vessel, and by extension, the might of the human race. Harrington's gaze swept across the bridge, and she could see the determination etched on the faces of her subordinates. These were not mere soldiers, but highly skilled and dedicated professionals who understood the gravity of their mission. "All hands, stand by," Harrington announced, her voice clear and commanding. "This is our moment to show the Psylocke that they have made a grave mistake in underestimating us. We will not falter, we will not retreat, and we will not be defeated. Today, we take the fight to the enemy, and we win." A cheer went up from the crew, their enthusiasm fueling the captain's own sense of purpose. Harrington turned back to the tactical displays, her mind racing as she formulated her plan of attack. "Helm, bring us within optimum firing range. Weapons, target the enemy's capital ships and prepare a full barrage. I want them to feel the full force of the Dreadnought's firepower." The human vessel surged forward, its massive engines propelling it towards the Psylocke fleet with ever-increasing speed. Harrington stood resolute, her fingers tapping commands into the console in front of her, her eyes narrowed in concentration. This was her moment. This was the Dreadnought's moment. And she would be damned if she let the Psyloph take it from them. As the Dreadnought closed in on the Psyloph fleet, the alien ships sprung into action, launching wave after wave of fighter craft in a desperate attempt to overwhelm the human vessel. The sleek, agile alien interceptors darted around the Dreadnought, unleashing barrages of energy bolts and missiles in a frenzied assault. But Harrington and her crew were more than prepared for the onslaught. The Dreadnought's advanced targeting systems easily tracked the incoming enemy fighters, and its point defense guns unleashed a withering hail of fire that quickly decimated the Psyloph's airborne forces. "Captain, we're taking heavy fire from the enemy capital ships," reported Lieutenant Park, her fingers flying across her console. "Their weapons are putting a strain on our shields, but we can still take it." Harrington's eyes narrowed as she studied the tactical display. "Acknowledged. Helm, keep us on course. Weapons, target their main batteries and disable them. We need to focus on taking out their bigger ships." The Dreadnought's main guns roared to life, unleashing a devastating barrage of plasma bolts and particle beams that slammed into the Psyloph vessels. Shields flickered and failed, and the alien ships began to take critical damage, their once fearsome firepower reduced to sporadic, ineffective bursts. Seeing their fighters swept aside and their capital ships brought low, the Psyloph commanders realized, to their horror, that they had severely underestimated the power of the human warship. Panic began to spread through their ranks, and their once coordinated assault quickly devolved into a disorganized retreat. Harrington watched the scene unfold with a grim sense of satisfaction. "All batteries, concentrate fire on their flagship. Let's show them the true might of the Dreadnought." The human vessel's weapons unleashed a torrent of destruction, ripping through the Psyloph command ship's defenses and tearing it apart in a blinding explosion. The alien fleet, now leaderless and demoralized, began to scatter, their pilots desperately fleeing the unstoppable onslaught of the Dreadnought. But Harrington was not about to let them escape. "Helm, pursue and destroy the enemy ships. We can't let them regroup and come at us again." The Dreadnought surged forward, its engines propelling it through the chaos of the battlefield. Missiles and energy beams lanced out, striking the retreating Psyloph vessels and sending them spiraling into oblivion. Volkov, standing beside Harrington, could barely contain his excitement. "The Psyloph are in full retreat, Captain. They have no answer for the Dreadnought's firepower." Harrington nodded, her expression grim. "This is only the beginning, Mikhail. The Psyloph may be on the run now, but they won't stay that way for long. We need to press our advantage and finish them off before they can regroup and come at us again." The Dreadnought continued its relentless pursuit, its guns blazing as it methodically destroyed the fleeing Psyloph ships. The alien vessels, once so confident in their superiority, were now desperately trying to escape the human juggernaut. But Harrington was not about to let them. "All hands, prepare for a concentrated barrage. I want their entire fleet wiped out before they can reach safety." The Dreadnought's weapons systems reached their peak output, unleashing a devastating volley of firepower that tore through the Psyloph army. Explosions rocked the alien ships, their hulls disintegrating under the onslaught. As the last of the Psyloph vessels disappeared into the void, Harrington allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. "That's what you get for underestimating us, you arrogant bastards." Volkov, standing beside her, let out a low whistle. "Damn, Captain, you really showed them. The Psyloph won't be making that mistake again anytime soon." Harrington nodded, her gaze fixed on the tactical display. "No, they won't. But this is just the beginning. We've only just scratched the surface of the Dreadnought's true power. When the Psyloph come back, we'll be ready for them." As the human vessel continued on its course, its crew basking in the glow of their hard-won victory, Harrington knew that the real challenge lay ahead. That Psyloph would not take this defeat lying down, and they would undoubtedly return with a vengeance. But with the Dreadnought at her command, She was confident that the humans would emerge victorious from the coming storm. The Dreadnought's devastating display of firepower against the Tyloth fleet had sent shockwaves throughout the human interstellar navy. Reports of the battle quickly spread, and soon the entire human civilization was buzzing with news of their most powerful warship's triumph over the arrogant alien invaders. For Captain Evelyn Harrington and her crew, however, the victory was just the beginning. They knew that the Xyloth would not take their humiliation lying down, and that the alien race would surely regroup and come back at them with even greater force. As the Dreadnought continued its pursuit of the fleeing Xyloth ships, Harrington stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the tactical displays. She could see the remnants of the enemy fleet desperately trying to escape, their once proud vessels now crippled and adrift in the void. "They're not getting away that easily," Harrington murmured, her voice calm and determined. "Helm, keep us on their trail. Weapons, prepare a concentrated barrage to finish them off." The Dreadnought's guns roared to life, unleashing a devastating volley of plasma bolts and particle beams that tore through the Tyloth ships. One by one, the alien vessels disintegrated under the relentless onslaught, their crews trapped in the doomed hulks as they were consumed by the fury of the human superweapon. Volkov, Harrington's first officer, stood by her side, his expression grim but resolute. "The Tyloth won't be underestimating us again anytime soon, Captain." That was a crushing defeat. Harrington nodded, her eyes narrowing. "Yes, but it's only the beginning. We've shown them the Dreadnought's power, but now we need to prove that we have the resolve to use it." She turned to the rest of the bridge crew, her voice ringing out with authority. "All hands, cease fire. Signal the fleet to hold position and await further orders." The Dreadnought's guns fell silent, and Harrington could see the confusion on the faces of her crew. "But Captain, the enemy is still within range," Volkov protested. "We could finish them off now while they're vulnerable." Harrington raised her hand, silencing him. "I know, Mikhail, but we need to show the Xyloth that we're not just here to destroy them. We're here to prove that we're the superior force, and that we have the discipline and commitment to use our power responsibly." Volkov hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I understand, Captain. The Tyloth need to see that we're not just a bunch of trigger-happy humans, but a true military force to be reckoned with." Harrington turned her attention back to the tactical displays, her mind racing. "Exactly. And the best way to do that is to show them that we're in complete control of the situation. We'll let them regroup and come back at us, and then we'll show them the full extent of the Dreadnought's capabilities." The human fleet held its position, the Dreadnought's mighty guns silent as the Xyloth vessels limped away. Harrington knew that this was a crucial moment, a test of her crew's discipline and her own leadership. If they could maintain their composure and resist the urge to annihilate the retreating aliens, it would send a powerful message, one that would shake the very foundations of the Xyloth's confidence. As the Xyloth ships disappeared from view, Harrington turned to her crew, her eyes shining with pride. "Well done, everyone. You've all proven yourselves worthy of the Dreadnought, and I couldn't be more proud. Now, let's get ready. The Tyloth will be back, and when they are, we'll show them the true power of humanity." A cheer went up from the bridge, the crew's spirits buoyed by their captain's unwavering faith in them. Harrington knew that the battle ahead would be fierce, but she also knew that with the Dreadnought and her dedicated crew at her side, victory was all but assured. As the human fleet prepared to meet the Xyloth's inevitable counterattack, Harrington stood tall, her resolve unwavering. The aliens had mocked the Dreadnought, but now they would learn the true cost of their arrogance. This was humanity's moment to shine, and she was determined to seize it. News of the Dreadnought's stunning victory over the Xyloth fleet spread like wildfire through the human interstellar navy and the wider population. Across the human colonies and outposts, people celebrated the prowess of the mighty warship and the skill of its dedicated crew, led by the indomitable Captain Evelyn Harrington. In the halls of the Interstellar Command, the top brass of the human military gathered to discuss the implications of this historic battle. Admirals and generals, once skeptical of the Dreadnought project, now sang the praises of the vessel and its commanding officer. Captain Harrington has proven that the Dreadnought is more than just a technological marvel, said Admiral Mikhail Petrov, the highest-ranking officer in the fleet. She and her crew have demonstrated the kind of discipline, skill, and bravery that we need to turn the tide of this war. Petrov's words were echoed by his fellow commanders, each of whom had closely followed the Dreadnought's progress and the growing threat of the Psylocke invasion. They were impressed not only by the ship's firepower, but by the way Harrington and her crew had handled themselves in the heat of battle. "What impresses me most is Harrington's ability to keep her cool under pressure," said General Samantha Lee, the head of ground operations. "She could have easily wiped out the Psylocke fleet when she had the chance, but instead, she showed restraint and discipline. That kind of leadership is exactly what we need to inspire our troops and show that Psylocke that we're not just a bunch of trigger-happy upstarts." The praise for the Dreadnought and its crew soon reached the ears of the general populace, who eagerly followed the progress of the human-Psylocke conflict. Across the colonies, people held rallies and parades, waving flags and banners in honor of the vessel and its valiant crew. In the bustling metropolis of New Horizon, the capital of the Human Interstellar Alliance, a massive crowd gathered in the city's central square to celebrate the Dreadnought's triumph. Speeches were delivered, songs were sung, and the name Evelyn Harrington was chanted with growing fervor. Amidst the jubilant crowds, the Dreadnought's senior officers, including Harrington and Volkov, stood on a raised platform, acknowledging the cheers and applause with humble nods and waves. Harrington, in particular, was clearly moved by the outpouring of support, her usually stoic demeanor softening as she took in the sight of the adoring masses. "We are humbled by your support and your faith in us," Harrington said, her voice carrying across the square. "But the true heroes are the men and women who serve aboard the Dreadnought. They are the ones who put their lives on the line to defend our way of life, and it is to them that we owe our gratitude." The crowd erupted in cheers, their admiration for the Dreadnought's crew evident in their thunderous applause. Volkov, standing beside Harrington, leaned in and whispered, "They love us, Captain. We've won the hearts and minds of the people." Harrington nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "Yes, Mikhail, we have. But now we must use that momentum to our advantage. The Psylocke will be back, and we need to be ready for them." As the celebrations continued, the Dreadnought's officers returned to their ship, their minds already focused on the challenges that lay ahead. They knew that the Psylocke would not take their defeat lightly, and that the coming battle would be even more ferocious than the last. But with the support of the human populace and the unwavering determination of the Dreadnought's crew, Harrington and her team were confident that they could meet the alien threat head-on and emerge victorious. This was not just a fight for the future of the human race. It was a fight for the very soul of their civilization, and they were not about to back down. As the Dreadnought prepared to depart, its engines rumbling with power, Harrington looked out over the cheering crowds, her resolve hardening. The Psylocke had underestimated the humans, and they were about to pay the price for their arrogance. As the Dreadnought prepared to face the inevitable Psylocke counterattack, Captain Evelyn Harrington and her crew wasted no time in thoroughly testing the ship's capabilities. They knew that the coming battle would be the ultimate trial, and they were determined to ensure that the Dreadnought was operating at peak efficiency. Under Harrington's watchful eye, the engineers and technicians aboard the mighty vessel ran a series of rigorous diagnostics, carefully examining every system and subsystem for any potential weaknesses or vulnerabilities. The ship's powerful fusion reactor was scrutinized, its energy output meticulously measured and fine-tuned to ensure maximum power delivery. "I want the weapons systems at 110% capacity," Harrington commanded, her voice calm but firm. "We can't afford to hold anything back when the Psylocke come at us." The weapons officers nodded, their fingers flying across their consoles as they adjusted the targeting algorithms and power distribution to the ship's formidable array of plasma cannons, particle beams, and missile batteries. Weapons systems running at 112% capacity, Captain, reported Lieutenant Samantha Park, the Dreadnought's chief of operations. We're ready to unleash hell on the Xyloth. Harrington allowed herself a small, satisfied nod. Excellent. Now let's test the maneuverability of this beast. Helm, take us through a series of high-speed evasive maneuvers. The Dreadnought's massive engines roared to life, propelling the colossal vessel through the void with surprising agility. The ship rolled, pitched, and yawed, its powerful thrusters responding to the helm's commands with precision and grace. Volkov, Harrington's first officer, watched the display with growing admiration. I'm impressed, Captain. For a ship of this size, the Dreadnought is remarkably nimble. Harrington's lips quirked upwards in a slight smile. Indeed, Mikhail. It's not just about raw firepower. We need to be able to outmaneuver that Xyloth as well. The Dreadnought may be a behemoth, but it's a behemoth with the agility of a dancer. As the testing continued, the crew pushed the Dreadnought to its limits, exploring the full extent of its capabilities. They measured its response times, its shield regeneration rates, and its ability to coordinate with the rest of the human fleet. Every system, every subsystem, was scrutinized and optimized, ensuring that the vessel was ready to face the Xyloth onslaught. Harrington stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the tactical displays as the data poured in. She knew that the fate of the human race rested on the Dreadnought's performance, and she was determined to leave no stone unturned in her quest to ensure its superiority. Captain, the latest simulations show that the Dreadnought can withstand sustained fire from the Xyloth's heaviest capital ships for over an hour, reported Lieutenant Park. And our own firepower can cripple or destroy their vessels in a matter of minutes. Harrington nodded, her expression grim. Good, but we can't afford to be complacent. The Xyloth are a formidable enemy, and they'll be coming at us with everything they've got. We need to be ready for anything. Volkov stepped forward, his own face set with determination. We are ready, Captain. The Dreadnought and its crew are more than up to the task. Harrington turned to face her first officer, her eyes shining with pride. I know, Mikhail. And that's why I've chosen you to lead the Dreadnought's fighter wing during the battle. Volkov's eyes widened in surprise. Me? But, Captain, I thought you'd want me on the bridge with you. Harrington shook her head. No, Mikhail. The Dreadnought needs you out there, leading our pilots in the fight against the Xyloth. Your skills as a tactician and your experience as a fighter pilot will be invaluable. Volkov hesitated for a moment, then straightened his shoulders and nodded. I understand, Captain. I won't let you down. Harrington placed a hand on his shoulder, giving it a reassuring squeeze. I know you won't, Mikhail. Now, go and assemble your squadron. It's time to show the Xyloth what the Dreadnought and its crew are truly capable of. As Volkov hurried off to prepare his fighters, Harrington turned her attention back to the tactical displays, her mind racing with the weight of the task ahead. The Xyloth were coming, and she was determined to lead the Dreadnought and its crew to victory. As the Dreadnought's crew continued to push the limits of their vessel's capabilities, Captain Evelyn Harrington knew that the real test was yet to come. The Xyloth would not take their previous defeat lying down, and she was certain that they would return with renewed determination and even greater firepower. But Harrington and her team were ready. They had spent countless hours analyzing the Dreadnought's performance, fine-tuning its systems, and exploring the full extent of its technological superiority. Now they were poised to unleash the ship's true potential against the alien invaders. One of the areas that had received the most attention was the Dreadnought's advanced sensor suite and targeting systems. Using the latest in quantum-entangled computing and high-resolution imaging technology, the ship could track hundreds of targets simultaneously, predicting their movements with uncanny accuracy. Our targeting algorithms are now 98% effective, reported Lieutenant Samantha Park, the Dreadnought's chief of operations. We can lock onto enemy ships and hit them with devastating precision, even at extreme ranges. Harrington nodded, her eyes narrowing. Excellent. And what about the energy weapons? Have we managed to increase their output? Park's lips curved into a satisfied smile. Yes, Captain. The plasma cannons and particle beams are now operating at 115% of their original capacity. We found a way to streamline the power distribution and optimize the plasma containment fields. Good, good, Harrington murmured, her mind already racing ahead to the coming battle. And the missile systems? Also upgraded and ready for action, Park replied. We've integrated the latest high-yield warheads and improved the targeting software. The Tyloth won't know what hit them. Harrington allowed herself a rare smile. Outstanding work, Samantha. The Dreadnought is more than ready to take on the Tyloth. Now, let's talk about our new defensive capabilities. As Park outlined the improvements made to the ship's energy shielding and ablative armor, Harrington listened intently, her mind already formulating strategies and contingency plans. She knew that the Tyloth would throw everything they had at the Dreadnought, and she was determined to ensure that her vessel and her crew were more than equal to the task. But Harrington's focus wasn't limited to the Dreadnought's technological upgrades. She was also keenly aware of the importance of her crew's morale and discipline, and she had been working tirelessly to ensure that they were ready, both physically and mentally, for the challenges that lay ahead. The men and women aboard this ship have proven their worth time and again, Harrington said, addressing her senior officers. They are the best of the best, and they know it. When the Tyloth come at us, they will fight with a fury and determination that the aliens have never seen before. Volkov, Harrington's first officer, nodded in agreement. The crew is ready, Captain. They're itching to get back into the fight and show the Tyloth what the Dreadnought can do. Harrington's expression hardened. Good, because they're going to get their chance, and soon. The Tyloth fleet has been spotted, and they're heading our way. A ripple of tension ran through the bridge as the news sank in. The long-awaited confrontation was finally upon them, and everyone knew that the outcome would have far-reaching consequences for the future of the human race. Harrington turned to her crew, her eyes sweeping across their faces. All right, everyone. Let's show the Tyloth what we're made of. Helm, bring us to full combat readiness. Weapons, target the enemy fleet and prepare to fire on my command. Today, we take the fight to the Tyloth, and we win. A chorus of affirmations echoed across the bridge as the Dreadnought's crew sprang into action, their movements precise and efficient. Harrington watched them, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. These were the people she trusted to defend humanity's future, and she knew that they would not let her down. As the Dreadnought surged forward, its powerful engines propelling it towards the Tyloth Armada, Harrington steeled herself for the coming battle. She knew that the fate of the human race hung in the balance, but she was confident that the Dreadnought and its crew were more than equal to the task. This ends today, Harrington murmured, her fingers tightening on the armrests of her command chair. The Tyloth will learn that underestimating the humans was the greatest mistake they could have made. With a roar of its engines, the Dreadnought charged into the fray, its weapons blazing, ready to deliver the final blow in the epic struggle between humanity and its alien foes.